Corso friends, welcome back to Opus Elenae, where we are still on our 14th century bullshit. I'm actually really excited to be sharing this project. The process is one I've been wanting to jump into for ages. It's the first big project since going back into the office, so I'm still trying to figure out if a fortnightly schedule is going to be sustainable. This did take me more than the allotted 2 weeks, but the pilgrim bag took me less, so here's hoping it all balances out. In my ongoing quest to be the prettiest prince, I have decided that I need more temporally appropriate menswear. So this week, I'm going to be making myself a masculine coat, the counterpart to the feminine supportive dress or coat hardy. They tend to be body skimming, if not skin tight, and the length can be anywhere from mid-thigh to just below the knee. So everyone go grab your cuppa. Since it is September, which is the official beginning of spooky season, I'm only going to get worse from here, folks. I am once again breaking out the Necromancer tea from Weeping Glass. It doesn't seem to be up on their site yet, but I'll link to the main page anyway. It is an earthy, slightly nutty maple black tea that tastes just like fall. Pumpkin spice has nothing on this, to be honest. And I'm drinking it from a new mug from Painted Sky Pottery. Shout out to Melody and Eskel, who kindly brought it all the way back from Pensick War in Western Pennsylvania for me. Okay, now let's get into it.
It's been ages since I had a Dressform, and when I did, it was one of those cheap, adjustable forms that you can get from big box craft stores. The ones with the dials that move adjustable panels, leaving huge open gaps between them. I decided to go with Fabulous Fit for my new one because their adjustability comes from padding. The Dressform wasn't cheap, but you do get what you paid for. It is sturdy and easy to assemble. Because my weight has fluctuated a good bit since the beginning of this channel, I went with a base form that was much smaller than I am now. They say to choose the form with the smallest measurement you have and then pad out the other dimensions to match. So I picked the proper form for the smallest size I've been, and I'm going to use a combination of the included padding kit and cotton batting to match it to my shape. Like this. I went to start draping and realized that while the stretchy cover has front, back, and princess seams, there's no side seams, so I'll mark those with a Sharpie. Now it's time to start draping. I'm using a piece of muslin and beginning with pinning the ripped edge at the center front. I want to make sure that the fabric is sitting high enough to accommodate the trapezius muscle in the shoulder slope when I pin around the neckline. Next, I'll gently smooth the fabric over the upper bust and shoulder areas, pinning the fabric to the form as I go. I'm trying to keep the grain of the fabric roughly vertical. There's a decent amount of loose fabric hanging from the bust point, which would be removed from the waistline with a dart in modern clothes, but I'm gonna leave it for now. Some of it will get eased out when I try it on my actual body, but some fullness is okay with me. I'll trace the seam lines and collar and then onto the back, which I'll drape using the same process. Off the dress form, I will neaten up the lines using my curved ruler, which I love, cut out the resulting pieces with seam allowances, and do a first round of preliminary fitting and change things just based on that. Then it's back to the cutting table where I will mark those changes on fresh muslin and cut out a full mock-up for the second round of fitting and refinements. I was worried about the coat being skin tight and added too much ease, so I'll need to pinch that back out at the sides and back and fix the angle of the shoulder slope, which I'll end up changing back later. Other than that though, I'm happy enough with how things look that I'm going to go from this fitting into a paper pattern rather than another mock-up. Again, I am tracing and smoothing the marked lines and then cutting away the seam allowances. Then I'll trace each piece out onto craft paper for sturdiness. I drafted out this beautiful sleeve, realized I'd done it all incorrectly, ended up tracing and modifying my existing Cote Hardy sleeve, and was too frustrated to remember to film it. Next time I do something with sleeves, I promise I'll document it better. In the interest of continuing my whole 30 yards challenge, I pulled out some periwinkle linen, or maybe a linen rayon blend, I can't remember, from the bottom of my stash where it's been waiting to be used for at least a decade. I think I have just enough. Here you can see the finished sleeve shape with a wider bicep that then tapers down from elbow to wrist. I took inspiration from a couple of the items in Medieval Garments Reconstructed, specifically D10580 and D10584, and also D5674 has a similar shaped sleeve, but it's cut in two pieces. The construction process is pretty straightforward. I'm sewing all the seams together on my machine, leaving a decent seam allowance for later. I'm not going to line this garment. The more I work with it, the more I'm convinced that it is a blend, and I don't want to add an additional layer to a coat that's already going to be warmer than usual. Once the torso seams are all finished, I can set the sleeves. I think I'm the exception to the rule, but setting sleeves doesn't bother me. I've marked the top of the sleeve head so I know where that lines up with the shoulder seam. This is especially important in medieval sleeves where the seam runs down the back of the arm rather than the inside. I do think I'm going to tweak the sleeve pattern just a little bit though, because the sleeve head was almost too small for my arm size, and generally you want it to be the other way around so you can ease the sleeves in. The current iteration works well enough that I'm not going to add a gore or recut the sleeves though. Quick try on now that the sleeves are in, and I'm quite pleased with everything except the angle on the shoulders, so I'll reverse that adjustment that I made on the mock-up and re-sew them to be slightly less sloping. I want to face the collar area partly because it looks so nice and clean, and partly because the linen is just a bit scratchy and I want something between it and the sensitive skin of my neck. I'll make the pattern piece in the same way that I made the facing for my cyclist, only with no darts because the center front is open. I'm using silk for the facing because A, I had a scrap of it, B, it feels nice on my skin, and C, extant 14th century clothing is often faced with silk. And this piece is washed silk, so I'm not even worried about it getting weird when I launder it. Thank you to all of my current and continuing Ko-fi members. Your support and the support of all of my members and croissants makes it easier to do what I do and provide quality content for everyone. Thank you so much. Stick around after this brief commercial break to see the hand finishing. In order to make sure the facing lays nice and flat, I'm going to add a running stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'm using undyed linen thread partially because many of the extant pieces that aren't sewn with unraveled threads from the fabric are sewn with undyed thread, and partially because that's what I brought with me. After that's done, I can clip the outside curve of the silk facing, turn the edges under, and whip stitch them down. I'm trying to take small stitches, but I'm not going to make each stitch invisible. I like the tiny bit of contrast and the evidence of handwork. Next, it's time to finish the inside. Since I already decided this is going to be a one-layer coat, I'm going to fell all of the seams to be as sturdy as possible. I'm marking the front openings 3/8 of an inch from the center line so I know where to fold the edges under to make the facings for buttonholes and buttons. These facings will be secured with a simple running stitch. After another try on to see whether everything looks good, it does. I need to even up the hem. Partner was off doing partner things and I didn't bring my chalk marker, so I had to improvise. Weighing down a friction marker with a heraldry book at the right height worked surprisingly well, actually. Then I can trim up the uneven bits and hem the coat with a simple double fold and whip stitch. Once I'm back home, I'll make the buttonholes, not by hand, every 1.5 inches down the front of the coat. I asked on my social media accounts which buttons I should use, and the winners by a surprisingly large margin were these silver flowerish buttons. I thought they'd be too bright and shiny, but they actually work with the lighter blue.
Thanks for joining me today. I know I always say that I'm happy with my project, but this time I'm extra happy with it. It's been years since I had a dress form at all, let alone one close enough to my shape to make draping a viable patterning option. I have so many ideas that I can't wait to try out. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell if you want to play YouTube notification roulette. If you want to find me on social media, I am at Opus Elenae everywhere, but the place you can find me most reliably is my Discord. If you're interested in sewing, history, or just a wonderfully supportive community, come join us at the link in the description. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Hwyl!